positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, 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 not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Welcome to Pod Damn America. Anders J. Lee here. How do you like that? I started the show.
Ooh, what is going on here?
It's a form of doming. Is that the right term?
I suppose that could be. I was gonna say mogging. You're mogging me. You're the man of the group. But
that's
this
what
can
that
be
stands for. I didn't know what that was. Okay.
Mogging is like a manosphere pickup artist thing where you're like intimidating everyone and showing that you're the man of the group.
I see. Interesting.
Doming is a more sexual, if you want to take that in this direction, we can have a really interesting episode of Pod Damn.
Let's do it. Hey, Mog. Do I call you the Mog? Or no, I'm the Mog.
You're the Mog. You're failing at mogging and doming right now.
I'm
do
not,
I call you the Mog?
I'm a what they call a sub. But I think I am. I don't know. I'm just I guess a normie would be the term for me.
We're flipping it today though. That's why you're hosting the show.
I'm beta. Yes, I'm beta becoming alpha.
You're not. You're not. Okay, you were beta, and now
I was beta, and I'm alpha. I really want to be sigma. That is people forget that's like the in between one. That is like the everyone should aspire to. I think
it's in between. I read a bunch of this shit the other day, just like because I was scrolling on Twitter, and it's like inserted into your feed now, like with against your will or whatever. But I was reading some weird manosphere thing that was describing all of them, and I thought they were all on a spectrum. And beta was the guy at the bottom, was like, and then like sigma is like even more alpha than alpha, but they're all like weird other. They're like, it's more complex than that. Like there was one, I think Omega was the one that's like good examples of this are like Captain Jack Sparrow and Han Solo. And I was like, ooh, I want to be that one. That's the cool, like loner one. And then there's like another one that was like the Legend of Zelda. All of the examples they gave for the types of person they're talking about were not real people. So they were like Link from Zelda. He's manly in a more subdued way or whatever.
Long hair.
And Harry Potter and like these weird examples of like kind of here's how you can be manly in a soft way. Because I think what they're doing is that they're pitching a catch-all thing to young guys that are like, well, you over there, you can't just be like, oh yeah, little dweeby Nikki, you're totally a sigma. You have to be like, no, we have another package for you. You are the triapta type guy. We're going to start you there and then work you into the best version that you can be. That way you can sell this product to anyone. And it's very fun trying to figure out which one you are. It's like it's very much like those quizzes from the early internet where you would figure out what Harry Potter house you were in or whatever the fuck. Or what? Actually, it's zodiac. It's astrology for men.
It's astrology. It's mental disorders. These, I guess this is like the inverse of disorders. Is just what personality type you are. But I'm Anders is what I am. So call me that. Just don't call me. Well, actually, what if someone identified as late for dinner? That was there. Like, where did that phrase come from? It's such a strange objection to have. I guess people like to be punctual, but that's the one thing you can't be referred to as.
I think it's from like a 70s sitcom. It was like a catchphrase.
Okay.
Call me this, call me that, but don't call me late for dinner.
Don't call me late for. Okay, so someone was arguing that they were in fact on time. Well,
I thought it meant don't be late when you call me for dinner because I don't want to miss the hot food.
Oh, just don't be late for. I thought it was somebody not showing up to dinner on time or making sure they were not accused of such activity.
Grok, where does "don't call me late for dinner" come from? And then the entire house explodes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, don't look it up, folks. We will live in the mystery like it's the 20th century.
too late. I already looked it up. Apparently, it goes back to the 1830s.
What?
Yeah. It says in 1834, the phrase appeared in an installment of the novel Japhet in Search of a Father by English author Frederick Marryat. This sounds made up.
Jaffet, don't mind if I do.
It was included later in an article in Fraser's Magazine for Country and Town, which is Farser, and it's from 1837. So it's not Fraser, but it sounds Fraser-esque. So prescient. Niles, don't call me late for dinner.
That is the thing that would happen on Frasier. Someone saying that. Well, we mentioned alphas, which not all they're cracked up to be. Sometimes they do stupid stuff. They are pumped full of hormones and misogyny and rage, and it makes them make mistakes or overreact to things. As it turns out, happened in 2019. There was a mission, SEAL Team 6, which I believe is like the top SEAL team. I don't know why 6 is the number associated with them, but
is that the one that killed Osama bin Laden or something?
I
That's why
believe
they
so.
always get brought up.
Yeah, or that's like the official story. Well, I think they had a video game at one point. Anyway, they were sent to North Korea to track Kim Jong-un, to place a device on his boat that would follow him around and like let the U.S. know what he was doing at all moments. And they were this is on North Korean soil for the first time, apparently since 2005. And this also came out in the Times piece. Is that in 2005 they had like this mini sub that just went ashore on
Mini
North
Dom, Mini
a mini.
Mog.
That was probably going on in the sub.
I bet. SEAL Team 6. Oh yeah, they're still the Navy, folks.
Yeah. But the sub just went on shore, looked around for a bit, and then left, and nobody noticed. And I guess that was a victory for the Navy. I don't know what the purpose of that mission was. The New York Times is still withholding certain information on it, but that was at a time when people were trying to lump in North Korea with the axis of evil.
Mhm.
So I don't know if they were trying to get confirmation of nukes and nukes pointed at Texas or whatever. But that's, you're not supposed to do that, right? It is an aggressive thing. Even if
The
you're not
axis of
shooting anybody.
evil thing during the Iraq War was like so obviously a reach. It was like Iran, Iraq, and then they just threw in North Korea, which is so far across the map, it feels like reaching. Like you're like, this one too, way the fuck over here. A thing that has nothing to do with either of the two. The implication is like such a stretch that they were just trying to go back to like Cold War type shit, but like Iraq, that doesn't make any sense. Am I not getting that? That was stupid as fuck, right?
The axis of evil, yeah. It's these guys didn't, they didn't have anything to do with each other necessarily. Iran and Iraq had a war not that long before this term was coined. And then North Korea is on the other side of Asia. They have nothing to do with bin Laden or Iraq or any of this stuff. It was
I guess because the Axis in World War II also included Japan. They were like, oh, we got to get an Asian evil thing in here.
Right.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. That was kind of an anomalous thing to have Germany and Japan, which are so far apart, just teaming up. But in any case, they practiced this for months, and Trump in February of 2019 announces that he's going to meet Kim Jong-un for a nuclear summit in Vietnam, and they partner with this underwater team, and they get on a nuclear-powered submarine, go to North Korea, and they're doing this thing kind of blind because it's super dark, and they've been practicing this again for months. John Bolton has not commented on this, so that's how you know it's true, because this definitely seems like a thing John Bolton would be behind. And this sub also had mini subs. They launched the 2 mini subs, and they go near shore, and they've no overhead video, so they had been studying the area, including fishing patterns, and they tried to pick a time where there wouldn't be anybody there. And this, statistically speaking, they're not going to encounter anyone. This is a perfect time to do it. But then all of a sudden they see a boat coming. They don't know what it is. There's lights on the boat, so they figure they've been found out, and their response is just to open fire, and they just shoot the shit out of what turns out to be some fishers, just people doing their job in fishing early in the morning, which, is the real victim in all of this. And if
the real crime, fishing in the morning.
Well, well, yeah, you could say the real victim was the fish, and maybe that'll be the angle, is like Trump has a newfangled take on PETA, that it also could include, like, pescatarians are the real hypocrites, and that's why we have to protect the fish. There's not enough fish in the waters, folks, and we got to take on the fishers, and we're gonna shoot them, as happened here. But there really should be some formal apology of some kind for doing this in the first place.
They're seals. They hate fish. Come on.
I guess maybe they could use that as justification as well. That's part of their training. You have to get into the mind of the seal.
Part of the training for becoming a Navy SEAL is that you kneel and on this little platform, and they toss a fish into your mouth, and you have to eat the whole thing and clap gleefully. It's only the most omega of men and Sigma and Alpha are allowed to make it through this rigorous training that is so tough.
Sign me up.
You have to bounce a ball in your head too.
Oh, well, then never mind. I wouldn't be able to do that.
Wait, you're really good at that shit.
I bounce on the ball. I don't bounce the ball on me. I can't. I don't think I can spin a basketball.
You never thought about doing that while you're doing flips on the ball and stuff?
No, not. I mean, no. It wouldn't balance. You would have to have a very specifically shaped head, probably an indent in the head.
Anyone who's not familiar with the lore here, that goes way, 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 way back, is in the early days of this show, when Anders used to come over to 538 when I lived there. There was a giant medicine ball that one of my roommates had, and he would just sort of casually be like, "Oh, one of these," and then just
yoga ball.
Sorry,
inflated yoga ball.
Yeah, the bouncy kind. Medicine ball's a heavy one. You throw at your stomach or whatever.
Yeah,
but just casually, just fucking and one out on this bouncy ball, like he was a giant kitten. Like, you would just balance on it and just sort of like flip around, and we were like, huh? Because you didn't do it, you didn't present it as like a party trick. You're just like, oh yeah, of course, everyone knows how to do this. And I guess you're a clown, that makes sense. But he's got steez, like, for sure. You should try out for the Navy SEALs and be like, look, you are SEALs do this at Disney World, no brainer. You got to let me kill fishermen
with a bouncy ball, just like tackle them, knock them into the water.
Well, you could float across the water on it.
That's true. It's pretty cold, so it would probably, like, what happens with science, it would condense. But
we're just the fighters. We're the SEALs.
You could get an infused one that's like super strong and can withstand the North Korean waters. But that could have been an extreme sport. I thought about that as a kid, because this was back when I never learned how to skateboard.
No need to. We should have made skate
rollerblading.
videos of you doing this. That's
Yeah.
pre-parkour, honestly. Now it's you see all sorts of shit out there. Take it to the skate park.
It's honestly kind of shocking that it never took off as a thing. I don't know what people were doing with these balls, because these big red balls, they were called. That was the name of the product. Were people just like throwing them around? Like, what were other kids doing with these balls? I don't know. I taught all the other kids in my neighborhood how to use it, and we would fight using it, and wrestle, and knock each other over and shit. But I could always bounce around and get away on it. But I don't know why it didn't take off. This could have been an extreme sport, definitely.
It
And if it had, I would have been in the lower rung of athletes, but I at least would have been remembered as the inventor, discoverer.
you could have been in the Tony Hawk style video game of it for sure.
Yeah.
What would had to have done is made it like BALLZ and then guitar riff Poochie type shit. This ain't your grandpa's balls. This is balls, and then we had to make a video, and the video would have to be like made into there's an infomercial for it that you see late at night, and then slowly you become like a D or F tier extreme sport, and you could have probably floated on that your whole fucking life, honestly. But you don't get second chances in life. It's unfortunate. They did this with razor scooters. At one point I was trying to make pogo. I just found a pogo stick when I was a teenager, and I was like, what if this was a thing that you did like jackass videos with? And I was about to try to pogo off of a brick mailbox in front of somebody's house somewhere, and I just remember being like, you know what, this is probably the moment that changes my entire life, and I'm just going to get off this mailbox and not attempt this, because this is how I break my neck, I'm not the Bam Margera of this situation.
Yeah. In a way, maybe for the best. I would have ended up injured, undoubtedly, in some way.
A bunch of clowns show up in an ambulance with the thing to stretch to put you on a stretcher.
Yeah. Well, what I was thinking about while I was bouncing around on this big red ball was clearly not making millions of dollars, because I wasn't entrepreneurial. But what I was thinking about was different wars from the past that I would read. Like I would get like a book from the library about like World War I or War of 1812, Mexican-American War. Those were like my big three. Sometimes other more mainstream wars. And I would read like a page and then be excited by the action, and I would bounce around on this ball. And action movies as well. I'd have action movies on and bounce around on it. Anyway, all of this is to say those wars were fought at a time when the U.S. government had a Department of War. That was part of the little segment there.
I see. Yeah.
It was in the presidential administration, and then in 1947 that got changed to Department of Defense. Truman wanted to split the Army and Air Force into different branches, and then put them together with the Navy to make the Department of Defense, which was codified by Congress, and it's been that until now, or possibly now. Trump on Friday signed an executive order renaming the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And he says, we won World War I, we won World War II, we won everything before that and in between, and then we decided to go woke, and we changed the name to DOD. So we're going Department of War. Harry Truman, you are guilty of being woke. He did also desegregate the armed services. I don't know if he's trying to make that point. But yeah, there are obvious reasons why you would want defense instead of war to be the name of the department that other countries are like directly interfacing with, to talk about potential conflicts and things. It's not officially the name yet, though, because Congress has to approve it. But Trump, is now really pushing unitary executive theory to its extreme, and doing all sorts of things unilaterally. So he's going forward with it no matter what, even if Congress doesn't want it, which is actually going to be kind of a funny and maybe good outcome, is that it'll be instead in this in-between phase where we can't even get consensus on the name. And if you can't even do that, how are we going to launch another war? So maybe it'll have a good outcome in that sense. But
did you, before we get off Trump, did you hear about the thing where the Speaker of the House or whatever, fucking Mike Johnson, who is right now, said that Trump was actually the reason he's associated with Epstein is because he was an FBI informant that was working on a sting operation.
Wow.
He said this.
Can't prove that it's not true.
Yeah.
But of all the people to be FBI informants, like, you pick the biggest loudmouth who is also just deeply incompetent and an idiot.
The idea of them like putting the wire on him and stuff, and he's taking it very seriously, is so funny.
And it's also like that he's anti-deep state, which
right,
is the FBI. That's they hate the FBI, at least in the past 10 years. So I guess before that they were cool, or maybe that's what turned him, is Trump saw the dark.
wait, no, I figured it out. It's real, but he does hate the FBI. He's a double agent. He's working for Epstein, posing as a sting operation against Epstein, but it's actually to use the FBI to get more snacks for their parties. It doesn't make any sense, folks. It goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, so he's been in on this whole time. He's like ran for president at the behest of like his handler, who helped him win or something.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He can't tell us though, he's actually working to save the country. He's playing both sides off of each other.
We can only hope. What if he cracks it and then he retires? He's like, all right, I did my job. I don't need to keep being president. Could happen. But in the meantime, he is ordering all of these official, names, because the name Department of Defense is on a lot of stuff. And according to Politico, officials are preparing to change Defense Department seals on more than 700,000 facilities in 40 different countries and all 50 states. This includes everything from letterhead for all of the branches of the military and dozens more agencies, down to embossed napkins and chow halls, embroidered jackets for Senate-confirmed officials, and the keychains and tchotchkes in the Pentagon store are now going to say Department of War.
Wow.
Which is, at best, ineffective. There's a former defense official quoted who says this is purely for domestic political audiences. Not only will this cost millions of dollars, it will have absolutely zero impact on Chinese or Russian calculations. On the other hand, though, it could be used by enemies of the United States to portray this country as warmongering and a threat to international stability. I don't know where they would get that idea otherwise.
Yeah, it's the name, definitely. You know what this does, actually, is it renders a bunch of napkins and plates and shit now unusable, which now I guess where you can use them at Jeffrey Epstein's island to have a birthday party. Think about it.
Boy.
This is not like that. It's so obvious, but like fell for it again. The thing where they're like, we're not into war, like we don't like foreign intervention or whatever. That's a weird throwback policy that they pretend to be into. Doesn't this just completely contradict that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's doing this thing where it's like, we got to be smarter about what wars we enter, but when we do get involved, we're going to kick ASS, and that means being... It is kind of, I honestly don't know that I totally disagree with this change, because like we may as well call it what it is, like Department of Defense. There's something Orwellian about that, they don't do a lot of defending. We haven't really been attacked by another country anyways.
That's true. If you're super political and leftist on the internet, what are you always saying, right? Call it the IOF, not the IDF. Yeah. It's the Israeli Offensive or Occupation Force or whatever. Right. So you cannot be mad at Trump. In fact, you do have to hand it to him. He's doing exactly that with the United States State Department.
Yes. Yeah, it's call it what it is, I say. But apparently there's
Just
obviously
don't call me late for dinner. Was the weirdest Trump I've ever done.
That was actually not bad. I heard it. But there are universities too that like have grants from the Department of Defense. And so now they're going to have to the Syracuse University Department of War scholarship for underprivileged youth.
Department of late for dinner. That is a ring to it. We should call it that. That's when I'm president. That's what we'll call it.
That's a good name. Yeah, Department of Late for Dinner, which would be I wonder if Trump is punctual, because I was going to say I'm sure he's late all the time, but Boris Yeltsin was extremely punctual. He would show up drunk, but he would show up on time, which maybe seems like a Trump thing. Obviously, he's not getting drunk either, but in any case, his administration, a lot of machinations going on, foreign and domestic. Folks, the economy is headed off a cliff. At least that has been the consensus among a lot of economic thinkers since Trump became president once again. And there is some bad stuff on the horizon, especially with people's retirement funds. And to dig into this, we have our special economics correspondent, David Isenberg, writer for the Financial Times, who will fill us in on what the heck is going on and what you can expect the economy to do to you personally. Really interesting stuff. Let's go to that interview with David. We are now joined by our pal, David Isenberg, tuning in from or talking to us from the District of Columbia. David, thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
And as I just mentioned, you are a former neighbor of mine, somewhat in the district. What's it like on the ground there? I know we've been talking a bit about it on the show. The troops or the National Guard dudes, like how hairy is it?
What side are you on? What side are you fighting for?
Well, the guys, the National Guard helped me move, so I really owe them a big solid. No,
that would be a great way to put them to use, honestly. If you just had Universal Moving Company for free. Yeah.
I have seen an image of them picking up garbage, and then like someone linked to the Seinfeld meme of, you see a cop not doing anything, just give him a shovel or give him a broom, and okay, all right, I'll give him that. But mostly I've seen them just kind of wandering the streets every once in a while. I saw 2 of them ordering a sandwich at Union Station, which for me felt like, I don't know, Superman ordering kryptonite. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing. It feels like
because it's full of worms and stuff. It's from Union Station. I follow you.
That's right. Yeah. No, the guy threw the sandwich at him, right?
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
The guy threw the sub sandwiches. Maybe that's something that is a DC specific reference. Is like the sandwich guy is like a folk hero here. You kind of see graffiti.
I caught that. It was news across the country, but it was a blip, and I forgot about it. But that is important. We should all honor the sandwich throwing guy, and there should be like a statue of the sandwich, like the guy who threw the shoe at Bush.
Right.
If you're listening, come on the show. We've been trying to get him on.
Shout out to Chris Bell, friend of the show, who talked to Mr. Al-Zaidi recently.
Oh wow, yeah, absolutely. He's a kind of a folk hero. I've seen like graffiti of like sandwiches like all over. I think people making T-shirts of it and stuff around town.
Cool.
Nice. He should open a sandwich shop. Supplant Call Your Mother, that's the bagel place.
Yeah.
By it's like got this pink sort of
millennial pink everything.
Yeah.
He opens it with Luigi. It's Luigi's sandwiches. Come on. Come on. Doesn't that sound delicious?
I'm already hungry. Yeah. So that's DC. Definitely interesting what's happening in the city itself, but in the White House, we got this maniac. He's doing dumb stuff. He's been president now for what, almost 100 days. And when he began his second term, the word to the wise was these tariffs, if he's actually serious about them, are going to cause a recession, maybe a depression. So it's, not a matter of if, but when this is going to go down. And, for a while it was like, is he actually going to do them? Is he not going to do them? There's some inconsistency, but he definitely, the tariffs have been implemented, but we haven't seen like at least from my perspective, like the total meltdown that people were warning us about. Is that still going to happen? And why has it not happened thus far?
I mean, that's a macroeconomic question that I think a lot of people can't answer, frankly. The fact that there's no labor growth, but the S&P 500 is still going up, I think is mostly a reflection of the Magnificent Seven, which are contributing to AI. There's,
And
in
that's
my opinion,
Magnificent Seven. That those are tech companies, or
tech companies. So it's mostly the big software companies that plus Tesla and Nvidia. And then they are, in my opinion, there's a lot of like concerns about over speculation, and there's a lot of money being poured into it. And the latest GPT was more incremental progress than revolutionary progress. And at this point, it's been over 2 years of Sam Altman saying that in the next 6 months, the whole 6 months, half the labor force is going to be laid off. So I certainly think that if you're an AI skeptic, you're starting to kind of see a little bit of Schadenfreude in the way that this is not really playing out the way that the hype machine has promised. Even the people who are like, this is the doomsday, that's a form of hype, right? Like if you say that the apocalypse is coming and you need to invest billions so you can be on the winning side, that's like a kind of the dark inverse negative of like the kind of Obama era idealism of Silicon Valley, of like, this is going to overthrow every dictate. Like, remember when like, in 2011, when they're like, all these social media companies are going to overthrow all the dictatorships of the world, right? Like this like vainglorious idealism was its own form of marketing for Silicon Valley, and now it's the inverse, where it's like, this is the apocalypse and you need to invest because this is going to destroy the world.
There was like a 6-month stretch a few years ago when Elon was talking about AI like that, and it's totally memory hold now, because now all he does is just go like, Grok, make her even more epic, skirt shorter or whatever. But that was totally what he was doing, though, because he was obviously fucking planning and building all this stuff.
Yeah, it should all be taken with a grain of salt. It's all a form, like, you should always think about who stands to benefit from somebody saying that this is a really powerful technology. So I think that right now the macroeconomy, this is just my opinion, I don't cover macroeconomic trends. I more cover like regulatory policy stuff. But in my opinion, I think that we're going to hit a certain point where investors are going to see that this is not going to pan out like they promised. But the problem is that all of a sudden it's going to lead to a huge bursting of the bubble, and we're going to have like a .com type recession. Nothing like huge, I don't think, but basically everyone's retirement plan, if you have one, or if you have any sort of exposure to the stock market through a mutual fund or an ETF or whatever, so much of that is overexposed to these AI companies. So whether you like it or not, you have stakes. Most people have stakes in this AI boom being successful.
And so it could be that bubble that popping that causes a recession, maybe not tariffs, or what do you think? Will tariffs contribute to some more economic turmoil beyond just prices in the coming months? Do you think?
I think that tariffs are, I mean, part of me feels like a lot of the Trump economy is you're not winning the board game, so you flip over the table. And a lot of the Trump coalition weren't winning under Biden, like the fossil fuel industry being the prime example. and so they're kind of flipping over the table. The problem is that there's a lot of like supply and demand issues around oil extraction that are not easily solved by that. Tariff wise, I mean, it's really hard to say whether the tariffs are going to cause a recession. Some people predicted they would. I don't know. It's just causing incremental price increases. He's also working out so many different side deals that it's so murky
Hmm.
where and how this is going to play out, because it's all bilateral negotiations behind closed doors.
Right. And on the tech thing, I wanted to ask you about Zuckerberg was at the White House just within the past couple of days, and there was a pretty funny moment where he's asked, I think it's about how much money he's going to be investing in the United States, like domestically, in the coming years, and he seems like normal Mark Zuckerberg, which is totally flummoxed and nervous and awkward. But he says $600 billion, and then later he's caught on a hot mic saying to Trump, "Well, I didn't know what number you wanted to go with, so I just kind of made one up."
Yeah.
What's going on there?
It's a really specific number. By the way. Catch
I
my
mean,
drift.
they're playing with the world economy's money. I mean, it's when you have such concentration of like the whole stock market relying on companies like Meta. He's just saying like, I'm going to throw this money towards this, whether you call it a boondoggle or not. And the money is like, okay, so I think on like day 3 or the first week of the Trump administration, he pledged $500 billion towards AI. And then like a week after that, DeepSeek came out, which was the Chinese competitor, significantly cheaper, doesn't require the special chips from NVIDIA, and is open source. We have not pivoted towards DeepSeek. Okay, that for me is a huge red flag that this is not a like valuable, productive tool. Because if it were, then everyone would be on DeepSeek right now, because it is a significantly improved technology. This is a smoke and mirrors, in my opinion. This is a like smoke and mirrors effort to divert capital away from people who were losing under a potential like some parts of Biden's administration, and redirecting it towards I think a lot of like tech companies, which is the main winner, but also utility companies and ultimately fossil fuel companies that are really benefiting from the increased emissions from the AI boom.
Yeah, which has been pretty devastating. I know there's like a town in Tennessee that's being, I believe, like directly polluted by Grok. So when you ask Grok a question, it's powered by this facility
Jeez.
in Tennessee that's like poisoning a mostly black neighborhood. But so you think it is tech is going to play a role in some economic strife, especially AI. This kind of makes me think about when people were calling for a recession or saying that was going to happen a few months ago. And it seemed to me like this would be so weird if this happened just from tariffs, which is what the warning was, because this is the first time I can think of in world history where a recession or depression would be caused solely by one guy being an idiot. But it sounds like you're saying that regardless of Trump as an individual and the White House, there's always just going to be a lot more structural trends at play here. We can't just reduce it to Trump.
I mean, look, I've been wrong so many times, so like give me a break a little bit, Anders. All right, but like, no, I don't know. I've been there've been so many times where I've predicted something inaccurately, so I want to caveat that. But in my opinion, I think that if something is more of a recession indicator or something that is more likely to cause a recession, it would be the AI bubble popping than something from tariffs. Just my hunch, I suppose.
Yeah. And do you think that there's a theory I've seen floated that the AI companies like ChatGPT and all these services that are now free, ChatGPT anyways, is totally free. people have become reliant on them, especially young people, in a relatively quick period of time.
Right.
But they're kind of playing
and always for like ChatGPT usage spikes right around finals time.
right. Yeah. Which, not a mystery as to why that happens. But if in the coming years, I've seen it speculated that they're going to start charging. And so this generation of students who's been reliant on AI for free will now have to start paying through the nose for it. Do you think that's going to happen, or like will these companies just like go belly up? What are some of the possibilities there?
I mean, you know,
Am I going to get dumped by my AI girlfriend when she doesn't exist anymore?
She's like, you need to pay up. Yeah, you need to get
just like
bigger...
a damn real girlfriend. Am I right? Fellas.
I think that Silicon Valley has gotten very good at doing this thing called capturing the market, and kind of focusing on that and convincing venture capital that is the most important thing to capture the market, to create a significant market share before you start making money. I mean, a lot of the Gen 2.0 Silicon Valley companies didn't start making money until like a decade later. Like Uber didn't have its first positive quarterly earnings call until like 3 years ago or something like that. And it was still getting tons and tons and tons of VC money. So they have figured out, and VC is patient, which is something we'll kind of get to, is just that like private capital can wait. They can throw money at something and they can let it sit for 10 years. They can let it sit for 20 years, and they don't need the money back immediately unless some sort of crazy thing happens, because they are not really like tied to a lot of these mainstream market trends because they're just so wealthy. And that allows them to fix in this gradual pricing model that we saw as millennials, which was like, okay, first Netflix is really cheap, and then slowly it gets a little bit more expensive, and then slowly they start introducing ads, which was the whole value prop of streaming, which was there's no ads, and now we all live with it because we all love Mad Men and whatnot. So I think that I would imagine that they're just going to kind of play the same playbook.
Yeah, man. Explaining to Zoomers that I once took an Uber. I think it was one of the first times I used Uber. I just gotten a smartphone, and I took one from, I think it was around Chelsea all the way to Bushwick, and it cost me about $10, which is like unthinkable now. And the girlfriend thing too is making me think of how the movie Her very accurately predicted where we're at now. It's like 10
With
years
the
ago.
Mustaches and stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fashion.
Like the way people dress. Like that was the genius thing about it, is it wasn't, people always go for flying cars for some reason. That's always the like future defining sort of thing. But it's not, as we've been shitified, right? Things are actually not that functional in the what now, third decade of the 21st century.
The fun fact: the former chair of the SEC, his under Biden, his favorite movie was Her.
Really?
Reference it all the time in speeches, all the time. Talked about it so much.
What the fuck?
He loved rom-coms. He would always talk about it's my job to like read and watch all of these commissioners of the SEC, all of their speeches and stuff. And this stuff is so dry that they try to like spice things up with some pop culture references. And his whole thing was like relate everything in securities laws back to rom-coms.
Wow. Okay.
That was his like literary whatever.
They should have hired Helen Hunt to like be the ombuds person to for the SEC. But how's that going?
Just like Annie Hall, how you're all fired tomorrow. She has to keep moving, right?
Joe Biden and Gary Gensler like have lobsters in the kitchen, and they're like,
yeah, that was the big ending. Wow, bittersweet salad days.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, yeah, that must have been a challenge to spice up Biden's regulatory policy, but with Trump, obviously a lot of cartoonish figures here doing demonic things. often in a very grotesque and mockable way. But you mentioned SEC. What is the state of the Securities and Exchange Commission today?
Well, the big push right now is obviously crypto, but I really want to talk about how the SEC is pushing um, private assets and private investment into the retail investment space. And when I say retail investment, I mean people who have a 401k or individual investors like meme stock, GameStop people, right? And these are anyone can buy a publicly traded company, but the SEC is trying to push it so that retail investors and 401k retirement savers can have exposure to the private markets. And it is all kind of in this world called asset management. And there's it's overseen by the SEC and by the DOL because the SEC regulates the funds. They regulate so when the New Deal came into being, they regulated and imposed new rules about like what these funds would look like and how they'd be regulated, and that's overseen by the SEC. But if you have a retirement plan that's regulated by that like you get through your employer, that goes through the DOL. And so they have joint jurisdiction and they kind of oversee these two things. And so they're working hand in hand, kind of like they did in the last Trump administration, but even more so now to speed up the ability for normal people to have exposure to these private investments.
Huh. And is this sort of reminiscent of what Bush tried to do to Social Security 20 years ago?
It's an interesting analog, I think, because the original idea for retirement, right, which is something that a lot of millennials are questioning whether that's ever going to happen, right, is because of our avocado toast, obviously, and we are the original idea was that you would have you'd have your Social Security check, you'd have your pension payout, and you would have your savings. And in the late 70s, under Carter, there's a law that passed called actually passed in 1974 under Nixon called ERISA, and that was supposed to crack down on pension mismanagement because there was a perception that pensions were being run by the mafia, that union pensions were being exploited. They weren't using the money appropriately and prudently and stuff like that. So then under Reagan, or really under Carter, there's a tax law that creates the 401k. Under Reagan, gets exploited. All of a sudden, under Reaganomics, there's this move away. Pensions are more regulated. People are moving into 401k. 401k is the new thing. Every employer starts dropping their pensions as union jobs start moving overseas. Pension plans get smaller assets, start drying up, and then it becomes like legacy pensions, right? And then people just start. Everyone gets a 401k, and now the three legs of the stool, you're missing one of the legs. You just have your Social Security, and now you have what's called your defined contribution plan, and that is different from the defined benefit plan, which is the pension, because under a pension, the benefit is defined. You're going to be taken care of for the rest of your life. And that's what a pension is supposed to do, a defined benefit. A defined contribution is you're just putting in this much money and we're not going to tell you what you're going to get out of it. And there's two, I want to just focus on like a really, really, really important difference between a defined benefit plan in a pension and a defined contribution plan in a 401k. A defined benefit plan is a pooled investment vehicle. It's like an insurance pool. Okay. So you get huge benefits from risk management and sharing the risk when you have a pooled endeavor, right? And you also get cheaper because things that come in bigger packages are going to be cheaper, and those things go away when you have a defined contribution plan, because in a defined contribution plan, when you have it, it just follows you from employer to employer to employer, but it is just your little pool of money that you have, and it's tax efficient, so you're not going to get taxed on it. But unless you have to do like an emergency withdrawal, which more and more people have had to do, it is not pooled. And so it creates a fundamentally different set of risk tolerances that you can take, fundamentally different set of items that you can invest in, without absorbing too many fees. And that's the core problem. And like any, person who studies economic history, everything changed under Reagan. And so much of the story of Ronald Reagan and why there's so much wealth and income inequality comes from the fact that we are all now on 401ks and not on pensions.
Of course, all of us, yes. Are on 401ks.
No, Jake, you make a good point. Like, and when I say all of us, I mean like the people like the 40th percentile to the 80th percentile of people who have salary jobs in a 401k, right?
Mhm.
The bottom 50% of people have no exposure to the stock market. You just have Social Security that you're going to be thinking about to rely on for retirement. So
Is it crazy that I just assume it's not going to be there? Like, to me, it's no net. Like, I think it's just hang on until you die is what realistically the plan for the future is.
I can't predict the future. I don't see any reason why it can go one way or the other. Like it's so, yeah. I guess I'm glad I'm lucky enough to have one. I think a lot of people are kind of like, I guess I'm lucky enough to have this money, but if I try and touch it now, I'm going to get this huge penalty. And so it almost doesn't really exist in some way. And there's no real guarantee that it's going to mean anything because of inflation by the time you're ready to retire.
Yeah. This reminds me of a joke from the late great Steve Mr. Jokes Whalen that I have my savings in a 401kthxbye.
Oh man, goddamn!
guy.
R.I.P. to a real one.
Oh my God.
Mr. Jokes one-liner. So are they going to be able to pull this off? Is there opposition in Congress or elsewhere from Democrats on this score?
Well, okay, so the SEC needs to change its rules, which they're trying to do. There was an executive order that passed in early August, to direct the SEC and the DOL to change the rules to allow this. And the problem is a few things that they still have a lot of obstacles to overcome. So when you have regular people with a limited amount of money investing in private assets, the good thing is people are like, oh, well, these perform better, right? Because generally, if you are a private startup, you're going to grow more, right? So you're going to get like 15% returns, whereas like a normal stock fund might get like on a really good year 7%. So you're talking money potentially. The problem is the performance is not regulated. So the disclosures that you get for the performance is not regulated. The amount of companies that don't get 15% is like 5 times higher than the ones that do, or 10 times. It depends on the sector. The way that you manage fees really, really complicated, because private investors are used to putting up a bunch of fees, what are called capital calls in the private equity sector, where they just throw a bunch of extra money at the venture capitalist or whomever, whatever company, in order to keep the investment going. And they can, it's also difficult to value, to get like a valuation basically of what the actual stock is. So let's say we're invested in Jake's t-shirt startup company, and the t-shirt startup company, like it's sold like 30,000 shirts, but it also has a lot of expenses. You watch Shark Tank.
Short it.
You're gonna short it, yeah. But the question is how much is that stock worth if I want to buy a share in this private, Jake Flores t-shirt company? You can't really do that in a private company in a meaningful way. There's independent people you can hire, but there's conflicts of interest in terms of who is going to evaluate it. And it really matters, because when you're determining the value, that's the price that it's going to get sold at. And that's the price that is going to determine whether it's doing well or not. So when you're saying like, oh my God, this private company, it just grew 15% last year because some random guy said that it was worth $10 billion. And then the next year, the guy said that it was worth 15 billion. Well, who the hell is that guy? And what the hell does he know? And there's a lot of questions around that in the private market industry, in the private market world, in the deep world of like the billionaire world, like this level of capital.
The shirts are definitely worth $15 billion, by the way. What
yeah.
he knows, I cannot repeat. But take my word
But
for it.
and it happens in the public sector too. Like, why the hell was Tesla so overly valued? Why was it the most expensive, stock on the stock market for as long as it was, and they didn't even sell that many cars? So hype is a big part of price, and you can't. It's hard to rely on in the public sector, but way, way harder to rely on in the private sector. And then the last risk, really, with getting exposure to private markets is liquidity, which is the way of cashing out. That's all it means. And if you can't cash out, what is the point of a retirement fund? And one of the things under the law that you're guaranteed under SEC law and DOL law that is that you as a retail investor, as a normal person, can cash out whenever you want, whenever you need, from your retirement account or from any like publicly traded fund, or fund with publicly traded exposure to it. So there's a lot of problems that they still have to figure out. And there's also the matter of being able to sell this to the employer, right? So like that's all the logistical problems, right? Then now let's say that they figure all that stuff out, and you have like companies like State Street and Apollo teaming up to try and work this out in these partnerships. Apollo is like the private investors. That's like the private equity firm. The former chair of the SEC under Trump was on the board of Apollo. And they're working with State Street, which is one of the biggest retirement fund managers. So if you have a 401k, there's like a 1 in 3 chance that State Street manages your 401k. Maybe 1 in 5. But then they have like those guys are teaming together to create a new product, right? They're trying to create a new registered fund product that they can sell to, Jake's t-shirt company, that he can offer for his employees for their 401k plan. Because ultimately the customer is the boss of whatever company is employing you for your retirement plan. Does that make sense? Am I talking too fast? Are we?
No, I think I follow.
Okay.
I'm following. That means people can follow.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like. Go ahead.
That's the customer is your boss, and and your boss needs to be convinced that this is like a prudent retirement plan for his employees. And historically, bosses are really bad at picking retirement plans, because when you had a pension, right, this was independently managed by your union, right? So UAW, Teamsters, CalPERS, which is like the California Public Employee Retirement System, they have an independent manager of their pension assets, right? Or at least with some of them they did, maybe not anymore. But then with a retirement plan, that is because it's by your employer to employer. You're just going to have Jake's t-shirt company, and whoever Jake from HR working at Jake's company decides to pick.
It's Anders.
And generally, like, they have to, and one silver lining to this is if they pick the wrong plan, they're going to get sued. So that's the other thing. So there's basically 3 things that are still stopping this, basically, which is that there's still some logistical questions to work out. They need to sell it to employers, and if they can't sell something good to their employers, then the employer is going to get sued for basically violating what's called the fiduciary duty.
I'm going to get sued, or can I blame it on Anders?
No, you are going to get sued because you run the company. Even though you hired Anders and even though Anders works in HR and Anders was the one who chose it, you're getting sued.
This is bullshit.
I like this, Paul. And by the way, also, you got to stop shorting. When we short the stocks, that doesn't mean you can short the shirts up to and make them crop tops.
That was damn it. That's why it was 15 billion. That was my plan. Is use the extra fabric to make a whole other shirt, all profit.
Definitely. Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of our listeners probably don't have 401ks. I have a retirement thing that I just throw a little bit of money every month in, but it's not a lot. What do people who don't have these investments have to worry about this development?
Good question. If you have an IRA, I mean, anyone who's a retail, like a normal person, can throw money in the Robinhood account, right? And a lot of you see on Robinhood, obviously all these very well-known publicly traded companies, but you also see these funds, and those funds with private assets are going to start showing up on Robinhood. So you need to be looking at the fees. You need to be looking at the performance. You need to be looking at the investment strategy of what these things are. The one that I was talking about with State Street and Apollo is already live. It's with the ticker PRIV, and I am pretty sure that is on listed. I don't know if it's on Robinhood exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's available to retail investors. But the big thing is, in my opinion, is that if shit ever hits the fan in the private world, in the private investing world, if Silicon Valley ever hits this AI boom bust cycle where all of a sudden, like, we have like a Silicon Valley Bank situation, if you remember that a few years ago, where there are these banks that were overexposed to Silicon Valley firms, and basically some increase in interest rates just totally wiped out their business model. You have something like that, even on a bigger level, where all of a sudden private investors, on Andreessen Horowitz or whomever or Apollo, things go south for whatever reason. It is going to creep into the public sector. It's going to creep into everyone, and the purpose of the New Deal laws was to separate private wealth from everyone else, and that was to protect the systemic health of the economy. So even in the real estate sector, I mean, this goes, 2008 is something that is a part of this as well, I think. I mean, there's real estate that is from corporations that are publicly traded corporations, and then there's real estate from corporations that are privately held. And so if you start having more intermingling of that privately held real estate capital in your 401k, it's just bigger and bigger and bigger and more interconnected with other parts of the economy. If that goes south, everyone is going to be hit harder. And it's, again, like, you're socializing the risk.
Interesting. Is this at all related to Medicare Advantage? Because I know during the Biden administration that there were a lot of red flags about a long game to privatize Medicare through this sort of private option, Medicare Advantage. I can only assume this hasn't been reversed under the second Trump administration. But is this all at all related?
I think it's an analogous idea, which is that there is a fundamental neoliberal belief that if you insert the private sector into public goods, that it will lead to better performance or more efficiency or what have you. And yes, I think that it's coming from the same ideology ultimately.
Okay. And is there a way to, I know you don't do predictions, but watching this happen, is there a way to make money off of it? Are there certain stocks you can bet on or investments you can make to profit off?
Hold on. Here's what we do, right? I'm going to get on Twitter and I'm going to start tweeting about how dangerous the crop tops are going to be, like on an existential level, to the global economy, to fashion, right? And then we inflate it with the hype, even though we're the ones selling the crop tops, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, you need to buy the crop tops now, because otherwise you're going to see somebody else's midriff, and that's going to just destroy your eyes.
In a couple of years, we're all going to be wearing them. You want to be in on the ground floor wearing the dangerous ones.
Yeah. I don't know what you can really. I'm not like an investment, I'm not a stock picker. It's hard for me to say like what you can do from like your own personal thing. The best thing whenever people ask me like what is like investment advice or what you want to do to get a better retirement security, or to avoid this sort of stuff, is to invest, is to find a way to get a pension and to like get a job with a pension, or form a union. And part of your contract is to create a pension. There's also ideas like sectoral bargaining, which would allow for cross-industry employees to bargain together, and part of that could be in the contract provisions to create a new pension. And part of the problem and part of the solution, I think, is that because right now you have a lot of these pensions that have up to 25% exposure in private assets. They can do that because they can afford it, because it's a big enough pool of money. But as pensions are getting smaller and smaller, the private wealth industry, right? So all these private equity, private credit, venture capitalists are running out of people to buy their products. And that's why they're going for retail. That's why they're going for normal people. And that's why they're trying to break into our retirement accounts, is because they've already pensions are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think that really the best and most well-known way to really overcome this sort of stuff is form a union. Part of the contract provision is to create a pension, and we need to advocate and have policymakers make it easier for unions to form pensions.
Mm. Well said. Well, is this
My employees don't actually need a union at my crop top venture company. We treat them very well.
Yeah, you're a family.
Yeah.
A sexy family of crop top people.
Yeah, and I'm your dad.
and I'm the HR rep of the family. Every family has one. Okay, so what is like the worst case scenario here? So it sounds like this could have some pretty significant magnitude on a macro scale. Will that end up having international shockwaves, or do you think this could just be contained to the U.S.?
I mean, anything that happens in the US has knock-on effects globally. We are just the biggest and deepest pool of capital on earth by far. Like it's when I talk about like quote unquote like retail asset management, I'm talking about people who are in the 50th percentile or 40th percentile income in the United States to the 80th or the 85th, or maybe depending on who you're talking to. This is the biggest single pool of money on earth, right? We're talking, I think, let's see, all defined contribution plans as of March 31st, $12.2 trillion, of which 8.7 trillion is in 401k plans. Okay, then you also have like 1.4 trillion in like teacher plans that are called 403b plans. In defined benefit plans, that is federal, state, local government plans, private pension plans. That's $8.9 trillion. So significantly smaller. 12.2 versus 8.9. Already you have way more people with exposure to the kind of like retail sector. So if there's something that we're like private, I mean, they're just like, as long as I've been covering this, I have just been, you see on the sidelines, the private investment sector drooling at the opportunity for this new customer base to open up, which is the retail investment pool. And they want to do that because they can charge them higher fees. They can give them kind of like a worse performing stock, like at a worse performing investments, and that they still get their money. There is so much room for conflicts of interest that that could come, that are, it's kind of like hard to spell out everything that could happen in different ways that billionaires could mess with your money and steal from you in all these tiny little ways. But generally, the more you privatize Wall Street and the more you privatize the S&P 500, the more you privatize people's retirement plans, the more you resemble 1920s style of capitalism. And there was just so many Ponzi schemes. There were so many moments where people were just being ripped off from these funds because the disclosures were wrong, the fees were way high, people were just straight up stealing. I mean, this sort of stuff would be a lot more sophisticated and would be a lot more buttoned up, and would be a lot more scrutinized. but it certainly is a lot more likely when you have private capital getting involved. And yeah.
So I think the moral of the story is we got to smash the private capital and replace it with. I mean, is that something we should be talking about though more? Is when because these issues obviously they get very wonky, but to the average person saying like no matter you can put regulations on it and that's great, but at the end of the day, these entities are here to eat, and that eating will include your savings if it comes down to it, and they really want to and get the ability to. How do we make this sort of a structural argument for people who are worried about their pensions and savings?
I mean, look, we all know that the ultimate source of value is from productive labor. And as long as there is productive value of labor, there is a logistics enterprise to distribute capital and to create the means of production.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically what finance is, right? You have a friend who's starting a business or wants to, I don't know, you throw them some money so that they can acquire the means of production so that they can, get the um, t-shirt making off the ground, right? And that is going to always exist. That exists in communist countries, right? I think that so those economic forces are always going to be distinct from capitalism, and there's always a difference between economics and capitalism.
Sure.
But I think that one thing that is very interesting to see is how much the Trump administration has made the state an active player in economics in the past few months. I mean, I'm thinking of like the golden share, which was a big deal when we sold off U.S. Steel to Nippon. The Trump administration acquired what's called a golden share for the United States to be able to have a lot of key decision-making authority in how this sold-off entity can regulate itself. If they want to close down a shop in Ohio or whatever, Trump can step in and veto that or something like that is kind of the marketing behind it. Trump has also taken 15% or 10% stake in Intel. So the whole idea is that he is acquiring capital to deploy it and have government stakes in a lot of these companies, private and public. And that is resembling the state capitalism of China, very much so. And also one thing that he's announced but hasn't fully acted on is creating a sovereign wealth fund, which is basically the government has a pension is kind of the easiest way to describe it. They have a big pool of money that they can trade on and invest on and use in the same way that a pension has that money and uses for the retirement account of their workers. The United States would get the sovereign wealth fund and use it for the benefit of the United States Treasury and for the American citizens. And Trump is acquiring assets ostensibly in order to further creating this kind of sovereign wealth fund. And there's a lot of countries all over the world that have sovereign wealth funds. The biggest one is in Norway. They have a state oil company, and they use the revenues from the state oil company to implement through their sovereign wealth fund to implement socialism, a democratic socialist country. So
socialism with Trumpy characteristics is what we have here.
I mean, yeah.
Hey,
yes.
If anyone wants to make a cool $1,000 or whatever it is, writing for Compact magazine, this is a great lead that they would love to run with, I'm sure. But so he's learning directly from the Chinese. He's like, is that where the ideas are coming from?
I don't know where it's coming from. I think that his instincts are as a deal maker and as someone who is and who as someone who has like acquired a weird bundle of wealth over his career that is like kind of hard to define. Yes, it's real estate, but it's also intellectual property, but it's also media exposure. And now his biggest source of wealth is cryptocurrency, of course. And the US SEC and other regulators are doing everything they can to shield the Trump administration, to enhance his wealth, and to shield the cryptocurrency sector from scrutiny. But I think it's more from that, Anders, than like from him seeing the light of socialism.
Okay.
I don't think he like read Marx and was like, oh, this is what I need to be doing.
Right.
Well, no,
But
what
I
they
mean,
always do is they always accidentally create it while trying to
Yeah,
argue against it. It's like hilarious. He's going to be actually like, he's the Dengist or something near the end of this.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that there are actually a lot of like Maoist comparisons to Trump, like in his like, and I mean, and
They hold up half the sky. You got to hand it to him.
he does have a disdain for urban elites. Most of his base is like in rural constituencies, and maybe he's now doing state capitalism on like under like Deng. But the Cultural Revolution, I mean, it's not as murderous as it was in the 70s under Mao, but like there's some crazy stuff happening right now.
I think
Right.
he likes theater too much to do the full Cultural Revolution.
You're probably right.
Well, he's
And it's
going to
not
make it
like
his own.
he
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like he is exactly, he's obviously not a vanguard of the proletariat, and everything he's doing is serving the billionaire class, and is ultimately serving Silicon Valley. I think that Silicon Valley is proven itself to be the largest ally, the most powerful ally in this new administration.
Mm. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. David B. Isenberg, thank you for joining us. Where can people find you and your work?
I mean, I'm on the FT. I do some freelance around
Financial Times, right?
Financial Times. I do some freelance work around. I'm not really on most social media stuff. I'm actually on LinkedIn a lot.
Okay. That's the
I
first time
know,
someone's actually plugged a LinkedIn on here.
and I don't. I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I like LinkedIn because there's no bullshit. Like people, you're there for the reason that everyone knows that you're there. There's not any charade of anything else. It's the most honest social media app in that regard. But a lot of my readers, obviously are people who are on LinkedIn, and so that's kind of where a lot of my audience is. But so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn these days.
Cool. Yeah, I plugged a comedy show once on LinkedIn, and I don't know if it got anybody. I like to think at least one person showed up because they saw my post on LinkedIn.
Hell yeah, dude. Let's link in, Anders. I didn't even know you were linked.
I am linked. Yeah, I don't. I'm not too active on that platform. I'm gonna start like a Blue Sky for people who have been burned.
That rules, man.
I'm going to start an app. It's for cheating. It's called Sneaky LinkedIn. It's
Ooh, very nice.
But you still have to put your resume and shit on it so you know who you're fucking with.
Awesome.
Well, you can follow me on social media. I don't think this is my name on LinkedIn, but at Anders Lee here on most platforms. And check out our Patreon. We got some good stuff back there, including an episode we just did on McCarthyism, which was really interesting to look back on in light of what's going on today. Jake, anything about?
Yeah, I think I'm on LinkedIn if anyone wants to hire a bartender at bartender, where the resume goes up to like 2015 and I gave up trying to work at hotels and stuff. I'm on all this stuff. You know who I am. I've got a show coming up. Let's see, it's on September 19th. I'm on XYZ, an X-rated cabaret / comedy show. They're celebrating 2 years. It's a really insane show out here where they have like, listen, I know it's like, oh, burlesque, ha ha ha. Everyone thinks it's cringe. I've seen some fucked up shit happen at this show. It's insane. It's more like a backyard wrestling kind of vibe, and then there's me telling jokes, and it's pretty fun. It's at Coyote Studios. There's tattoos. You can go get a tattoo at it. There's something called strip karaoke happening. It's gonna be real fucked up. I'm a fan of the show. I'm happy to be on it. It's September 19th, and probably more stuff coming up soon. But I think that's it. Just hang out with us. Keep listening to the show and sign up for the Patreon if you would like to support us and get bonus episodes. That's about it.
Indeed. All right. And I should also plug paid protest in Queens. We have a Queens paid protest now at QED on September 18th at 9. Yeah. And we're raising money for the NYCDSA Eco-Socialist Working Group. Got Laura High, Jonathan Van Halem, Amber Bourne, Peng Dong. Come check us out. I'll put a link for the tickets in the description. All right, boys. It's finished.
Thanks, guys.